What's up, you guys? I'm not amazing, I'm just mediocre, and welcome back to the channel and this Apex Legends video. Today, I have a guide for you on everyone's favorite toxic trapper, the clown prince of the Apex games, Caustic. That's right. This is actually a legend I used to kind of hate. I didn't like this guy at all. Nobody had any love for the big boys. But then, fortified buff came along, and then the damage of the gas was drastically increased, and suddenly Caustic became a lot more of a top tier legend, a lot more viable on the battlefield, and kind of on par with his contemporaries in the Apex Legends roster. So with Caustic's entire kit revolving around his gas, he has gas canisters that he can toss out. That's his tactical ability. Toss out gas traps that can either be activated by people passing by them or by being shot. And there's a lot of different ways you can use these besides the generic I'm going to hold myself up in a house. Then we're going to talk about those later. But his ultimate is in more gas. It's a tossable gas. Instead of waiting for someone to set off a trap, you throw it, it pops out smoke right away, and is pretty deadly. It covers a lot more space than the tactical gas canisters do. And then the passive revolves even more around the gas. Is the fact that you can see enemies that are inside the gas like a digital threat, and then you're not affected by it at all. You receive none of the stunning or slowing effects of the gas as you pass through it. So with this whole kit revolving around the gas, let's talk a little bit more about it. It starts off by doing 4 damage per tick, and then increases 1 point every second, every tick. They are still inside that gas. So it starts off at 4, then goes 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is also done separately per cloud of gas. So you can actually see as the Octane is crawling through these 2 separate clouds of gas, he's getting 2 different ticks of damage. So every single cloud of gas that a person is actively standing in will be doing constant ticks of damage for them. So if you get somebody in like 3 clouds, 4 clouds of gas, that's going from 0 to 100 real fast, doing all these ticks every second. And then you've been seeing this whole time the green highlight around Octane, which is the passive, the Nox vision that allows you to see enemies highlighted that are inside your gas, sort of like a digital threat. Now the fortified buff makes a really big deal with Caustic, and especially in these one-on-one front-facing fights, because like in that fight right there, front-facing Gibraltar, I almost died. I was like maybe 1 shot away from death, and that 15% less damage per bullet hit makes a big difference in these one-to-one fights. So Caustic is not actually a bad character to use in these one-on-one fights, as long as you use him correctly. You really need to make sure you're making full use of any and all cover your environment, and crouching and jumping as well makes a huge difference. Your character is very big, so when he jumps high, and when he crouches low. It makes a big difference in the height of your character. So make sure you're using all of those different movement capabilities when you're in those one-on-one fights. And of course, as Caustic, you are invulnerable to both your Caustic and enemy Caustic's gas. So you are going to be the one that's going to be able to push through those areas and get into those places where people are hiding up and trying to, bunker down, pull up. But make sure you remember that works vice versa. If you feel safe inside your hidey hole, you might not be. The other team might have an enemy Caustic, so always be prepared for somebody potentially rushing you in those situations. I talked before that there's a lot of different ways that we can use those tactical gas traps, and what I'm doing right here is passively trapping an area, especially like these tunnels and the world's edge, these really nice choke points. A gas right here, especially if it's close to the edge of the circle, can really mess up somebody's day. It'll slow them down, it'll hit them with damage, and in this case, it actually got me a free kill. I guess this guy must have just got revived, or maybe he was already in a fight or something, but I hit him with a couple tips of my gas from like way long ago, and then he died. And then this clip from the beginning of the video, you might have noticed, I set those 2 as I was pushing in for that fight, and it actually ended up killing that Octane as he tried to escape the fight. So that's not a bad idea either. If you're pushing into a fight, put the gases at potential exit zones to prevent the enemies from escaping. Now, instead of just passively using your gases, you can also actively use your gases. You can use an active defense, or you can use them as an active offense. So let's talk about active defense. This is when you need some space. You need to get away from those enemies. You can lay down your traps, or you can lay down your ultimate. Both do the same amount of damage. They're both very effective, and that can give you the time you need to pop off those heals, get a shield swap in really quick, and get yourself back in the fight. I personally actually don't like camping in rooms very much. I like to use my gas actively. I don't want to hole up. This game is all about moving. You need to move. And so I like to use them not just in rooms, but out in the open as well. Put them out in front of you in the middle of the fight if you need some space, and shoot your own traps. So you don't have to wait to somebody to come at them to set them off. If you're in a fight, you can actually throw these around corners and shoot them and start gassing somebody that's around a corner from you and force them out of their position. That's another thing, is that the gases are like an area denial kind of tool. You don't necessarily actually have to do damage with them. Maybe you can just prevent people from getting somewhere or being somewhere. Maybe prevent them from getting to you, or maybe prevent them from being in the space they're in. Maybe pushing them out of the space that they're currently in. But your gas is useful in a defensive manner more than just setting them in front of a door and blocking that door. You can put them out in front of you to make a wall of gas, give you some of that visual cover. You can even be very aggressive with them and throw them around corners, but what throws really far is actually the ultimate. If you're trying to be aggressive with your gas, the ultimate is the way to go. As you saw, I tossed it all the way down the hill, and I was able to push this Mirage out of his safe spot and into an area where I could easily get to him. And it's, you know, even if you don't push the enemy out of the area, it does tons of damage, and so it can just make it really easy to finish off enemies. Like this Bangalore right over here, she's hiding in there. There's nowhere for her to go. She's pretty well, you know, screwed. This Octane in here, I tossed my gas in that garage. She's got nowhere to go. He's pretty well screwed. And so that's what you can do with the gas. You can toss that gas really, really far and be really aggressive and offensive with it. And you know, have to force enemies to move out of their safe spaces. That's what it's really good for when you're being aggressive, is that they can't just sit there in that house anymore, or else they're going to start taking that continuous damage, or maybe behind a piece of cover. Like that, we're fighting the Wraith here towards the end of the game. This Wraith is holed up behind a piece of cover, and so I deny her that area on the left, and I push her from the right, and so she has nowhere to go but up. And it really limits the enemy's options and allows you to dictate the pace and flow of the fight. Where do you want them to go? Put caustic traps where they aren't, right? So like, if you want them to go one way, put a wall of caustic traps the other way, right? And that'll force them to go the direction you want them to go. And really just limit their options. And then, of course, what Caustic is best known for is owning, just absolutely owning the final circle. Whether you're inside a building, outside, you can find that final circle, and if there's lots of cover around, you can put all kinds of gas traps around. Like in this particular moment, we have a team right above us. They're on top of the bridge. We are underneath them, and I am Caustic, and I'm just gassing this place up. Just trying to put as many traps as I can around where the circle is going to close to, and these guys just absolutely get wrecked by the end of it. I will say it's not very often that you get perfect circle finishes like this one that you're witnessing right now, where I have the opportunity to completely gas the whole area up. But when you do have that chance, it's almost like a guaranteed victory, just destroying the entire squad. You know, with a few easy, simple gas traps. And even if you don't actually hurt them with the gas traps, maybe you prevent them from, you know, getting there in the first place. And maybe they're trapped inside the circle, and that's how they end up dying. And sucks to be them. And so Caustic has become a lot more fun to use. Especially since he's like one of the only characters I actually have a gold finisher for, so it's just really fun to hit him with that nice little titty gas right there. Nice little titty gas finisher, that's the best. Oh, but that's about it for this Caustic guide. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure you hit a subscribe, drop a like on the video. In the meantime, I am Mediocre, and I'm out.